The sound of the fork breaking against the porcelain plate's edge was louder than it should have been, possibly because everything seemed louder at that moment. The clinking of spoons, the low murmur of wine-fueled conversation, the high-pitched chuckle of my wife Selena, and more importantly, the quiet that descended like dust following her mother's insistence that Julian clean the bathroom. I stopped, mid-cut, knife still sunk into a garlic potato. I honestly believed she was making fun of Claudia Westbrook, you know, the socialite queen of calculated socialism and power law strategy. But no, Claudia looked at me like I was an employee, and employees are paid. I let out a short, stunned laugh. Her gaze didn't flinch. I looked around table 12, then said what I meant. Sharp, like a scalpel slicing ego. Selena didn't blink. She simply sipped her wine, her crimson lips curling over the rim, as if this humiliation was perfectly normal. The sound of a wine glass breaking, followed by the knife being delicately placed down, was like drawing a line in stainless steel. My eyes snapped back to Claudia. Her hand was still raised, where she had dropped the glass, as if the shattering was punctuation. Then she leaned in and delivered the line she'd clearly been saving. "I'm a lawyer, Julian. I can frame you for anything I say." Her voice dropped an octave. "I need volume. Hit me. And I'll make sure you never work again. With one signature, I'll put you in jail." I blinked, shocked. Not because she said it, but because I saw Selena's face. I looked at her, hoping for just a flicker of protest, a glimmer of discomfort, something. But instead, she smirked, met my eyes, and said, "You have two options." That was when it broke. Not the fork. Me. Clean the toilet. Or go to jail. I stood there, in her family's mansion, treated like a pet, a butler with perks, a footnote. I hoped, despite everything, that maybe she still saw me. Maybe she still thought I was beautiful. But what I saw in her eyes was a man who was only ever convenient. The napkin dropped slowly to the floor. Silence descended upon the room like an oppressive cloud. No one moved, even their pampered Pomeranian, Lord. Biscuit just sat there, like a royal heir perched on a velvet throne. I didn't raise my voice, didn't throw a chair, didn't curse or cry. I just said, "Excuse me," and left. But halfway to the hallway, I realized something. My phone, still in my front pocket. Earlier that evening, I'd hit record, a voice memo, to capture Claudia's latest rant for posterity. I didn't expect it to capture the exact moment my marriage died. I didn't go back for the salad fork. I went back for my dignity. I saved the audio to a folder I'd quietly named Self-Respect. In the guest room, I packed the essentials: 3 shirts, 2 jeans, laptop, backup drive, phone. My hands were shaking, not from fear, but adrenaline. I plugged in the charger, uploaded the audio to my protected cloud, took one last look in the mirror. I didn't look broken. I looked awake. The end. Doorman didn't say a word when I left. I slipped into the back seat of a rideshare. 2 minutes later, the driver arrived. "One place," I said. He nodded. As I stared out the window, heart pounding, I kept hearing Selena's voice. "You have 2 options." No, I thought. I have a third. Because what they didn't know, what Claudia and Selena could never have predicted, was that my father is Judge Malcolm Marsh. We hadn't spoken in years. But this night redefined the word emergency. I inhaled, took out my phone, pressed the name I hadn't touched since my mother's burial. His voice answered, and mine cracked. "Dad, I think I need help." That was when the game changed, and you'd be shocked at how long a person can convince themselves that a cage is a castle. When love is the background, it's easy to miss the bars. Selena. and I had met during my final year of business school. I was overworked, underslept, and burning through internships and bad coffee. She walked in like sunlight, elegant, electric. When she showed up, I felt like I'd won the lottery. When she accepted my proposal, I didn't realize I was signing a contract laced with fine print: power, pedigree, politics. At the time, I didn't understand the weight of the name Westbrook. Her mother, Claudia, was the kind of woman who ran firms, settled lawsuits over mimosas, and ended careers with a single phone call. The moment I met her, I knew. I wasn't what she wanted. I didn't have legacy trust funds or a name that opened doors. I was Julian Marsh, driven, hopeful, and carrying a half-used Metro card. Selena once traced her fingers across the floor of our tiny apartment and said, "I love that you're real, that you didn't come from money." But later, she said I reminded her of a museum piece, something she would eventually outgrow. We married on a rooftop under string lights and curated smiles. Claudia whispered during the embrace, "Welcome to the family. Try not to embarrass us." I laughed, mistaking her venom for warmth. Our first year was good. Small apartment, creaky floors, leaky faucet. But it was ours. Then my startup job vanished overnight. Severance came, but it was a short runway. Selena suggested we move into her mother's estate, just until we land back on our feet. The Westbrook estate was a fortress. Marble floors, velvet couches, a sauna, a wine cellar, a Pomeranian with a closet bigger than our kitchen. At first, I told myself it was temporary, but weeks became months. I stopped applying to jobs, started running errands, fixing things, pet sitting. Claudia walked past and said, "Be useful or be gone." Didn't even look at me. Selena laughed louder now, wore power suits, talked about donors and board meetings. When I asked if I could come to events, she'd reply, "It's mostly for partners. You'd be bored." But I wasn't bored. I was alone, in luxury, in silence, invisible. Then one night, Claudia walked into the kitchen. I was scrubbing pots. Selena glanced at me and said, "You know, Julian, I could still do better." She didn't even say hello. Didn't even sit down. That night, I climbed into bed beside a woman who once called me forever. She didn't even turn her head. I was a ghost, living in a museum, on display, owned, but I remembered who I was, and that memory became my sharpest weapon. I barely slept. Checked into a hotel, smelled bleach, buzzing lights, but for the first time in months, I felt safe. And then I heard it again. The recording. Claudia's voice. Selena's order. The wine glass hitting the floor. I uploaded the audio. 3 different platforms. Encrypted it. Backed it up. Saved it on a flash drive I keep on me at all times because I knew peace is not always peace. My phone rang. Unknown number. It was 6:02 a.m. Still no call from Selena, not even a passive-aggressive text from Claudia. They thought I'd come back, like I always did, but I wouldn't. This time, I found a name in my contacts I hadn't seen in almost 7 years. Judge Malcolm Marsh, my father, and this time, I was ready.